"You're lying, kid. Your grandpa never trained SEALs." The coach's hand cracked across Tyler's face. Sharp, humiliating, final. The gym went still, all eyes on the trembling boy, until the door creaked open. A shadow stepped inside, calm, built like iron, eyes locked on the coach. He did, and I was one of them. What followed shattered every doubt in that room and rewrote the boy's future forever. Welcome to Chuck Norris Heroics. Let's uncover what really happened. The gym buzzed with the usual energy of focused fighters and the sharp sounds of gloves hitting pads. Among the regulars stood a young boy named Tyler, barely 12, but with a fierce pride that made him stand out. He wasn't the biggest or strongest, but his eyes shone with something more, confidence rooted in family legacy. Today, Tyler had a story he was eager to share, and the room was the perfect place for it. Gathered around the punching bags and mats, a group of older fighters took a break, wiping sweat from their brows. Tyler, breathless from his own training, couldn't wait to speak up. "You know," he said, voice clear and steady, "my grandpa trained Navy SEALs. Real SEALs. He's one of the best trainers out there." The room fell silent for a beat. Then a low murmur of surprise and skepticism rippled through the fighters. Some exchanged doubtful glances, whispering among themselves. The coach, a grizzled man with years of experience etched into his weathered face, paused mid-motion and turned sharply toward Tyler. "That's a bold claim for a kid your age," the coach said, voice rough but controlled. His eyes narrowed. "You sure about that, kid? Because around here, we don't deal in fairy tales." Tyler's heart hammered, but he didn't back down. "I'm serious. Grandpa showed me his old medals. He told me stories about the training, the missions, everything. He wasn't just some weekend warrior." The coach stepped closer, his tone hardening. "You don't just say things like that without proof." Without warning, his hand struck Tyler's shoulder sharply, a slap meant to shake the boy's confidence. The room gasped. Some froze. Others looked away, unsure how to react. Tyler's eyes flashed, pain mixing with stubborn resolve. The gym, usually filled with sweat and grit, now held a charged silence. The other fighters looked on, sensing something bigger was unfolding beneath the surface, a story tied to honor, pride, and truths waiting to be told. Before anyone could speak, the heavy gym door creaked open, and a new presence entered, quiet, commanding, and unmistakable. Tyler rubbed his shoulder where the coach's hand had struck, the sting sharp but fading quickly beneath his determination. His chest rose and fell with steady breaths. His eyes locked on the floor for a moment before flicking back up, burning with quiet pride. He wasn't about to let the doubt in this room, his second home, diminish what he knew deep down was true. Gathering himself, Tyler began to speak, his voice steady despite the tension hanging thick in the air. "My grandpa wasn't just a soldier. He trained Navy SEALs, the toughest fighters there are. He didn't do it for glory or medals. He did it because he believed in discipline, strength, and honor." The other fighters listened, some still skeptical, others curious now. He paced slowly, his words gaining weight with every step. "When I was younger, Grandpa used to tell me stories about those early mornings, the brutal drills, the mental tests that pushed men beyond what they thought possible. He showed me his medals, real ones, not just shiny trinkets. He told me how the SEALs had to be ready for anything, how they trained in silence and fought with precision." Tyler paused, feeling the eyes of the gym on him. "I didn't grow up around fighters like you all, but I learned a lot from him. He taught me what it means to respect the fight and the fighter, no matter who they are. And I carry that with me every day when I train here." There was a shift in the room. The coach's scowl softened slightly, but the tension hadn't fully lifted. Some fighters nodded. Others exchanged glances that hinted at memories of their own mentors and battles. Tyler's words had sparked something. Not just a story about a grandpa long gone, but a legacy of grit and honor that transcended age and experience. For a moment, the gym felt less like a place of judgment and more like a gathering of warriors connected by more than just punches and kicks. Still, doubt lingered in the coach's eyes, and the room waited, sensing that Tyler's proud story was only the beginning of something far bigger than anyone expected. The coach's jaw tightened as he stared at Tyler, the weight of the boy's words hanging heavy in the air. His eyes, sharp and unyielding, flicked over the boy's determined face, searching for any sign of doubt or hesitation. But Tyler's resolve was clear, and that only seemed to fuel the coach's frustration. He wasn't a man to suffer fools lightly, especially not in his gym. Stories and medals don't win fights, the coach said, voice low and cutting. You think just because your grandpa trained some guys, that means you're ready to walk in here and throw punches with the best? This isn't a fairy tale, kid. This is real life, real pain, real consequences. He took a slow, deliberate step forward, towering over Tyler. The gym fell deathly quiet, every fighter watching the confrontation like it was a match about to start. The coach's hand shot out again, this time a sharp slap across Tyler's cheek. The sound echoed sharply, a sudden crack that made some of the older fighters flinch. Don't come in here spouting nonsense and expecting to be handed respect, the coach snapped. You earn it. You bleed for it. You fight for it. Tyler's cheek burned, the sting fierce, but his eyes didn't waver. Instead, a flicker of something stronger, anger, maybe pride, shone through. The coach saw it and shook his head, almost disappointed, as if the boy's spirit was both a challenge and a reminder of his own tough lessons learned long ago. This place is built on hard work and reality, the coach continued, voice gravelly. Not stories from some dusty past. If you want to prove yourself, stop talking and start fighting. The fighters exchanged uneasy glances, caught between respect for the coach's authority and sympathy for the boy's hurt pride. The tension thickened, the room holding its breath as Tyler stood firm. The coach's harsh reaction a test of wills neither was ready to back down from. Outside the gym, the heavy door creaked open again, breaking the silence and shifting the energy in a way no one could have predicted. The gym seemed to hold its breath. The usual sounds, thudding punches, grunts, the scrape of feet on mats, fell away into an unnatural silence. Even the hum of the overhead fans dimmed, as if the room itself was waiting for something. Fighters froze mid-motion, eyes wide, watching Tyler stand still despite the sting on his cheek. The coach's glare lingered, but the tension was no longer his alone to command. Tyler's jaw clenched, a quiet fire burning in his eyes. He didn't move, didn't speak, but his presence filled the room like a silent challenge. The other fighters shifted uneasily, unsure whether to step in or let the moment play out. Some whispered, their voices low and tentative, breaking the heavy quiet. Others simply stared, caught between respect for the coach's authority and growing admiration for the boy's unyielding spirit. The air was thick with unspoken questions. Had the coach gone too far? Was Tyler's story more than just the stubborn pride of a child? For the first time, the gym wasn't just a place to train. It felt like a battlefield where respect and legacy clashed just as fiercely as fists. The heavy door at the back of the gym creaked open again, drawing every eye toward it. A tall figure stepped inside, his presence instantly commanding the room. Calm and confident, he moved with a quiet strength that seemed to shift the energy in the air. There was no need for words. Just the weight of his arrival was enough. Conversations died before they could start, and the fighters instinctively gave space, parting like the sea. The coach's hard gaze softened just a fraction, curiosity and something deeper flickering behind his eyes. Tyler's stance relaxed ever so slightly, hope stirring beneath his cautious resolve. The newcomer's eyes scanned the room, landing briefly on Tyler and then on the coach. Without a word, he nodded, a subtle gesture that spoke volumes. The silence remained, but now it was charged not with tension, but with possibility, a quiet promise that whatever came next, the story was far from over. The newcomer's presence seemed to pull the gym into a different rhythm, a shift so subtle yet profound that even the hum of fluorescent lights felt softer. Tyler's eyes never left the man as he moved toward the center of the room, his expression calm, but carrying the weight of countless untold stories. I hear there's talk about a certain grandpa, the man said, voice steady and low, carrying a quiet authority that made the fighters lean in. A man who trained Navy SEALs. That true? Tyler nodded, the pride in his voice unmistakable. Yes, sir. My grandpa was one of the best. He never bragged, but he always said that discipline and heart mattered more than medals. The coach shifted, visibly unsettled but silent. The newcomer's eyes narrowed thoughtfully, scanning the gym like he was reading a history written in sweat and scars. Your grandpa's past. It's not something many know about. The man continued, his tone softer now. He kept things close to the chest. But what he did, it shaped lives more than you might realize. His gaze met Tyler's, steady and sincere. He trained men who went through hell and back. Men who learned to push beyond fear and pain. He was more than just a trainer. He was a mentor, a guide. The kind of man who leaves a mark not by words, but by example. Tyler listened, every word sinking deep. For years, the stories had come in fragments, tales whispered late at night, medals hidden away, letters faded with time. Now, those fragments were beginning to form a clearer picture. The coach finally spoke, voice rough but less harsh. I knew your grandpa back in the day. He was tough, relentless, and fair. I didn't realize how much he meant to some of those SEALs. The newcomer nodded, a hint of a smile touching his lips. His legacy isn't just about training fighters. It's about forging men who carry honor even when no one is watching. That kind of strength, it's rare. The gym felt different now, less like a battleground, more like a gathering of those ready to carry forward a story that had waited too long to be told. Tyler stood a little taller, the weight of his grandpa's secret past settling into something powerful, a legacy worth fighting for. A low murmur began to ripple through the gym, like the first crackle of fire before it roared to life. Fighters who had been silent moments ago now exchanged glances, their voices barely above whispers but charged with a newfound respect. Stories long buried beneath sweat and bruises surfaced quietly, shared in brief nods and half-spoken acknowledgments. I remember hearing something about him years ago, one fighter said, leaning close to a training partner. They called him the ghost trainer, worked behind the scenes, never seeking credit but damn good at what he did. Another nodded, eyes reflecting the flicker of memory. Yeah, the guys who train under him, they didn't just learn to fight. They learned how to survive when everything was against them. The whispers grew bolder as more voices joined in. Some spoke of whispered legends from military circles, tales of grueling drills, and impossible endurance tests. Others recalled quiet acts of mentorship, how the old trainer had shaped more than just bodies. He'd forged unbreakable minds. The coach, usually the center of attention, found himself listening. The hard lines on his face softened as fragments of his own memories stirred. He glanced toward Tyler, who stood near the newcomer, eyes bright with the knowledge that his grandpa's story was finally being heard. Fighters who had once doubted now nodded in approval, their skepticism melting into a collective acknowledgement. The gym, once tense with confrontation, hummed with the energy of shared history, a community bound not just by fighting, but by respect for those who came before. One seasoned fighter spoke louder, breaking through the whispers. If this is true, then that boy's got something to stand on. Not just a story, but a legacy. The newcomer gave a small smile, watching the shift unfold. Legends don't fade away just because they're quiet. They live on in the fighters they inspire. As the whispers settled into a steady hum, Tyler felt a quiet pride swell inside him. The gym wasn't just a place of sweat and pain anymore. It was a place where stories became legacy and legacy became strength. Tyler stood tall, the weight of the room's attention pressing on him, but he refused to falter. The whispers had grown louder, the doubt melting away as the fighters around him began to see his story not as a boast, but as truth. He felt their eyes, not of judgment, but of curiosity and respect. This was his moment to prove that he wasn't just a kid with a wild claim, but someone carrying a legacy worth honoring. I know I'm young, Tyler said, his voice clear and steady, cutting through the chatter. But I've trained hard every day. I'm here to learn, to fight, and to earn respect, not just for me, but for my grandpa's name. The gym fell silent again, this time in attentive anticipation. Even the coach's gaze softened, the edge of hardness replaced by something closer to grudging admiration. Tyler's words weren't empty. They carried the weight of years spent listening to his grandpa's lessons. Lessons about discipline, perseverance, and humility. He met the coach's eyes squarely. I'm ready to prove myself. Not by stories, but by action. Teach me what I need to know. The coach's mouth twitched, as if fighting a smile. After a long moment, he nodded slowly. All right, kid. If you're serious, we'll see what you've got. But don't expect any favors. This gym doesn't hand out respect. It's earned the hard way. Tyler's heart pounded with a mix of nerves and determination. The road ahead was going to be tough, but he wasn't afraid. Every bruise, every sore muscle, every early morning and late night was a step closer to proving that he belonged. Around him, the fighters resumed their training, some casting encouraging glances his way. The atmosphere shifted, filled with possibility rather than skepticism. Tyler had taken his stand, not just against doubt, but for a legacy that demanded honor and strength. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for a name, a story, and a future built on the sacrifices of the past. The gym was alive with renewed energy, the rhythm of punches and kicks echoing off the walls. Tyler was already deep into his training, sweat dripping down his brow as he pushed himself harder than ever before. The weight of the coach's tentative approval hung with him, a challenge he was eager to meet. Suddenly, the heavy gym door swung open, drawing immediate attention. Heads turned, and the room's noise faltered for a moment as a tall figure stepped inside. Dressed simply, but with an unmistakable presence, the visitor moved with the ease of someone used to command without shouting for it. Whispers rippled through the fighters. No one recognized him immediately, but the shift in the atmosphere was undeniable. The coach paused mid-motion, eyes narrowing in cautious curiosity. Tyler wiped his face and glanced toward the newcomer, sensing something important was about to happen. The visitor's gaze swept the room slowly, settling briefly on Tyler, then moving to the coach. There was a quiet confidence in his stance, a calm strength that spoke of experience and respect earned, not demanded. Without a word, he raised a hand in greeting, a simple gesture that carried weight in the charged silence. The coach stepped forward, nodding once, as if acknowledging an unspoken understanding. You must be the one they told me about, he said, voice low but firm. I wasn't expecting you. The visitor smiled faintly. I came as soon as I heard, he replied. There's more to this story than anyone realizes. Tyler's heart raced. This man wasn't just another trainer or fighter. There was something different about him. His presence felt like a bridge between the past and the future, carrying answers and challenges wrapped in quiet strength. The gym settled into a hush, anticipation thick in the air. The unexpected visitor had arrived, and with him, a chance to uncover truths that had been hidden too long. Whatever came next, Tyler knew it would change everything. The moment the visitor's name was spoken, a ripple of recognition surged through the gym. Chuck. The name alone carried weight, a legend whispered about in fighting circles and beyond. The fighters, once focused on their drills, now paused, eyes darting between the newcomer and each other. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Chuck who? One fighter whispered. Chuck, as in Chuck Norris? Another breathed, disbelief and awe mingling in his voice. The coach's usual stoic expression softened just a fraction, a rare hint of respect shining through. He nodded slowly. The one and only. Came out of retirement to settle some old scores and help a kid who's got more guts than most. Tyler felt a mixture of awe and nervous excitement. The stories his grandpa had told, the tales of relentless training, unbreakable spirit, and unyielding honor, suddenly seemed to leap off the pages and into the room with this man's presence. Chuck's reputation wasn't just about legendary fights. It was about integrity and the kind of discipline Tyler aspired to embody. Chuck moved with an effortless confidence, his gaze sweeping the room like a man who knew every corner and every face. Yet, there was no arrogance, only quiet strength and purpose. He approached Tyler with a measured step, extending a hand with a firm but welcoming grip. "Your grandpa was a good man," Chuck said, voice low but carrying the weight of experience. "And you're carrying his legacy forward. That takes courage." Tyler shook the hand, feeling the steady power behind it. The gym buzzed around them, fighters stealing glances, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others nodding with newfound respect. Chuck turned toward the coach, a knowing look passing between them. "Looks like this gym has more stories than meets the eye." The coach chuckled softly. "Yeah, and we're just getting started." As curiosity peaked and whispers swirled, one thing was clear. Chuck's arrival had shifted the game. The gym wasn't just a place to train anymore. It was a place where legends met, and where Tyler's journey was about to take a pivotal turn. Chuck and the coach stepped aside, away from the growing crowd, their voices dropping to a low, serious tone. The gym's hum faded into the background as they spoke quietly, the weight of their conversation palpable even to those nearby. "Your grandson's got fire," Chuck said, eyes sharp but thoughtful. "But fire alone doesn't win fights or respect." The coach nodded, folding his arms. "He's got heart, no doubt. But this place, it demands more. Discipline, control, humility. He's just a kid trying to prove a legacy that's bigger than him." Chuck's gaze softened, recalling memories etched deep by years of experience. "I knew his grandpa well. Tough as nails, with a quiet strength that never needed loud words. He believed a fighter's greatest weapon wasn't fists, but mind and spirit." They paused, the air thick with unspoken understanding. The coach glanced toward Tyler, who was catching his breath after a rigorous round of training. Chuck's expression shifted, a hint of a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "This kid's got potential," Chuck continued quietly. "But he's walking a path that's as much about character as it is about skill. If he can learn that, he'll be more than ready for what's ahead." The coach exhaled slowly, the tension in his shoulders easing. "I want to teach him that. But sometimes tough love isn't enough. Sometimes it takes someone who's been through it all to show him the way." Chuck nodded. "Then I'm here for that. Not just as a legend from the past, but as someone who's ready to fight alongside the next generation." Their quiet conversation carried a promise, one that extended beyond punches and medals. It was about guidance, about passing down wisdom earned through scars and victories, about shaping a boy into a man who could stand tall not just in the ring, but in life. As they rejoined the gym's bustle, the unspoken bond between them added a new layer of purpose to the training floor. Tyler's journey had gained not only mentors, but champions, and the fight ahead was no longer his alone. The gym's energy shifted again as word of Chuck's presence spread beyond the walls. Fighters who had been skeptical now found themselves listening with new ears, their doubts slowly melting into curiosity and respect. Tyler's story, once dismissed as youthful bravado, began to take on a weight it hadn't held before. Late into the afternoon, as the sun dipped low and cast long shadows across the mats, Chuck gathered a small group around him, including Tyler, the coach, and a handful of the most attentive fighters. His voice was steady and calm as he began to share pieces of the past that few had heard before. "There's more to your grandpa's story than medals and missions," Chuck said, looking directly at Tyler. "He was part of something bigger, a brotherhood forged in silence and tested in the harshest conditions. He trained men who didn't just fight battles overseas, but fought their own inner wars every day." Tyler's eyes widened, hanging on every word. Chuck continued, describing the relentless training regimes, the mental fortitude required to survive and lead, and the unbreakable code of honor that bound those men together. This wasn't just history. It was a legacy of sacrifice and resilience. The coach listened intently, nodding slowly. "I remember some of those days," he admitted quietly. "Your grandpa wasn't just a trainer. He was a man who made sure no one gave up, no matter how tough things got." Whispers spread through the group as Chuck revealed stories of hidden struggles, victories won in the shadows, and the quiet strength it took to keep going when the world was against them. The fighters absorbed it all, their respect deepening not just for the grandpa they never met, but for the boy who carried that legacy forward. Tyler felt a surge of pride, but also a growing sense of responsibility. The truth was no longer just a family secret. It was a call to live up to the honor and strength that had been passed down to him. As the sun set beyond the gym's windows, the truth began to surface, not just as a story told, but as a foundation for what was yet to come. The air in the gym grew heavy with reflection as Chuck's stories stirred memories that seemed to ripple through the room. Fighters paused, their movements slowing, caught in the weight of history shared in quiet reverence. Tyler leaned in closer, eager to grasp every detail of the Navy SEAL training that had shaped his grandpa and countless others. Chuck's voice softened, carrying the solemnity of hard-earned lessons. Navy SEAL training wasn't just about physical strength. It was a crucible that tested every part of man, mind, body, and spirit. Your grandpa knew that better than most. He pushed those men to their limits, then beyond. He described the infamous Hell Week, where trainees endured freezing water, little sleep, and constant pressure, both mental and physical. It was designed to break you down so only the strongest could rise. Not just in muscle, but in willpower. Your grandpa was there, making sure the weakest didn't survive, but the strongest became unbreakable. The coach's eyes darkened with memories of his own battles, nodding silently. Chuck went on, recounting the relentless drills in swimming, parachuting, combat tactics, and survival skills that demanded absolute precision and discipline. Your grandpa taught more than techniques, Chuck said, his gaze fixed on Tyler. He taught resilience, how to stay calm when chaos surrounds you, how to fight not just with your hands, but with your mind. Tyler's heart pounded as he imagined the grueling days his grandpa endured. The early mornings, the freezing nights, the endless drills. It was a world far removed from the gym he knew, yet the lessons were unmistakably the same. Chuck paused, his voice steady but filled with respect. That kind of training changes you. It's a lifetime commitment. Your grandpa carried that with him every day, even when the battles were over. The fighters exchanged looks, a quiet understanding passing between them. The memories of Navy SEAL training were no longer distant legends. They were the foundation of a legacy now living in Tyler, ready to be forged anew in the heat of the gym. The room settled into a shared silence, heavy with respect and the knowledge that true strength was built on more than just fists. It was built on endurance, honor, and unyielding spirit. Despite the growing respect in the gym, a shadow of doubt lingered in the coach's eyes. He watched Tyler train with keen attention, noting the boy's determination, but also the rawness of his technique. The coach had seen many young fighters, some with talent, others with nothing but dreams, and he knew that spirit alone wasn't enough to survive in the ring. After a particularly intense round of sparring, the coach called Tyler aside. His face was serious, the lines around his eyes deepening with concern. "You've got heart," he said quietly, "but heart can only take you so far. Fighting is about more than just willpower and legacy." Tyler wiped the sweat from his brow, meeting the coach's gaze without hesitation. "I know. That's why I'm here, to learn everything I can." The coach sighed, the weight of experience pressing down. Your grandpa's legacy is a powerful thing, but it's also a heavy burden. You're fighting expectations, your own and everyone else's. That can break a kid if he's not careful. He paused, searching for the right words. "I don't doubt your spirit, but the truth is, there are no guarantees. Sometimes, even the strongest don't make it through. You got to be ready for that." Tyler nodded, the reality sinking in. This wasn't just about pride or family stories. It was about survival, about facing the harsh truths of a brutal world. The coach's doubt wasn't a lack of faith. It was the hard honesty that came from years of watching fighters rise and fall. "I want to push you, but I also want to protect you. It's a fine line. You need to be ready not just to fight others, but to fight yourself." As Tyler absorbed the coach's words, he felt a surge of resolve. Doubt was part of the journey, something to confront and overcome, not avoid. The coach stepped back, nodding once. Keep training. Keep learning. But remember, legacy is nothing if you don't survive to carry it. The gym's noise rose again around them, but between Tyler and the coach, a quiet understanding had settled. The path ahead was uncertain, but both knew the boys' fight had only just begun. The late afternoon light filtered through the gym's high windows, casting long shadows that stretched across the worn mats and punching bags. The atmosphere felt heavier than usual, as if the walls themselves carried the weight of unspoken history. The coach stood by the corner, his eyes distant, the lines on his face deepening with memories he rarely shared. During a break, one of the older fighters approached cautiously. "You okay, coach?" he asked, sensing the shift in mood. The coach's gaze snapped back, sharp and guarded. "Old wounds," he muttered, voice low. "Sometimes this place brings them all back." Tyler watched quietly from across the room, curiosity mingling with concern. He had seen the coach's stern facade soften in moments before, but never like this. The coach's past was a mystery to most, locked away behind years of discipline and silence. Chuck, noticing the tension, stepped closer. "You want to talk about it?" he asked gently. The coach shook his head slowly. "It's not easy. Lost some good men back then, friends, brothers. The kind of loss that doesn't fade with time. Seeing Tyler fight, hearing the stories of his grandpa, it stirs things up I thought I'd buried." Chuck nodded knowingly. "I've been there. The past has a way of reaching out when you least expect it." The gym's noises seemed to soften as the coach took a deep breath. "I wanted to believe we could leave those days behind. But the scars, physical and mental, they don't just disappear. They shape who we are, whether we like it or not." Tyler's heart tightened with empathy. The fight was bigger than punches and medals. It was about carrying the weight of history and pain. The coach's eyes met Tyler's, fierce but vulnerable. "That legacy you carry, it's not just about strength. It's about facing the pain and still standing. Sometimes that's the hardest fight of all." The room felt charged with unspoken understanding. Old wounds had reopened, but in their reopening lay the chance for healing, for passing on not just skill but resilience. As the gym returned to its rhythm, Tyler realized the path ahead was as much about overcoming the past as it was about conquering the present. The gym buzzed with fresh energy as Tyler stepped onto the mat, feeling the weight of new eyes watching his every move. Today wasn't like any other training day. With Chuck standing quietly in the corner and the coach observing more closely than usual, every jab, every kick, every footwork step seemed amplified under their scrutiny. Tyler wiped sweat from his brow and squared his shoulders, determined to prove himself beyond just stories or legacy. The coach called out instructions with sharper focus, pushing Tyler harder, demanding precision and discipline. Chuck's presence was a steady force, silent but powerful, a reminder that the lessons extended far beyond the physical. The drills were relentless. Tyler moved through rounds of sparring, pad work, and conditioning, his body aching but his mind sharpened by the challenge. Chuck occasionally stepped in, correcting his stance here, refining a punch there, his experience guiding Tyler's raw talent into something sharper, more focused. "You've got speed," Chuck said quietly during a brief pause. "But speed without control is just wasted energy. Learn to harness it." The coach nodded in agreement. "And remember, fighting isn't just about offense. Defense is just as important. Protect yourself, anticipate, and never let your guard down." Tyler absorbed every word, the weight of their combined knowledge settling on his shoulders like a mantle. This was more than training. It was a transformation. The legacy of his grandpa, the harsh truths from the coach, and the quiet strength of Chuck all converged in each movement, each decision. The gym, once a place of simple drills and repetition, had become a crucible for growth. The fighters around him noticed the shift, nodding in approval as Tyler pushed through exhaustion, his focus unbreakable. By the end of the day, as the sun dipped low and the gym lights flickered on, Tyler stood tall, breath heavy but spirit unyielding. Under new eyes, his training had taken on new meaning. He wasn't just preparing for fights. He was preparing to carry a legacy forward. with every strike, every block, and every moment of discipline shaping the fighter he was becoming. The air in the gym crackled with anticipation as the time for Tyler's first real test approached. It wasn't just a sparring match. It was a rite of passage, a moment where respect would be earned or denied. The fighters gathered around the cage, eyes sharp and expectant, ready to witness if the boy carried the legacy his grandpa had left behind. Tyler's heart pounded as he stepped on a mat, feeling the weight of every gaze on him. Across the ring stood a seasoned fighter, strong, confident, and seasoned in the kind of battles Tyler had only just begun to understand. The coach gave a brief nod, signaling the start. The bell rang, slicing through the silence. Tyler moved cautiously at first, testing the waters with light jabs and careful footwork. His opponents circled him, throwing quick combinations, forcing Tyler to react and adapt. Sweat beaded on Tyler's brow, but he held his ground, recalling the lessons of discipline and control Chuck and the coach had drilled into him. A sudden flurry of punches came his way, fast and precise. Tyler dodged, weaving under a hook, then countered with a sharp jab to the ribs. The crowd murmured, impressed by his composure. The fight was no longer just physical, it was mental, a chess match where every move counted. The coach watched intently, his usual stern expression flickering with approval. Chuck stood quietly nearby, eyes narrowed, assessing Tyler's progress with a mix of pride and critical care. Minutes passed like seconds as Tyler pushed through fatigue, landing a solid combination that staggered his opponent briefly. The room erupted in quiet cheers. When the bell finally rang to end the round, both fighters lowered their gloves, breaths heavy but respect earned. The seasoned fighter approached Tyler, extending a hand with a genuine smile. "You got heart, kid. Keep that up, and you'll go far." Tyler shook the hand firmly, a spark of confidence igniting within. In that moment, respect was no longer just a word. It was a bond forged in sweat and determination. The test was passed, but the journey was just beginning. The gym had settled into a steady rhythm after Tyler's hard-fought sparring session, the fighters returning to their drills and routines. But the calm was about to shift. Chuck stepped forward, his presence commanding immediate attention. The room quieted, all eyes turning to the legendary figure who rarely spoke without purpose. "Kid," Chuck began, his voice steady and firm, "you've shown promise. Heart, discipline, and grit." He paused, letting the words hang in the air. "But there's something more you need to understand, something that separates a good fighter from a great one." Tyler's brow furrowed in curiosity, muscles still trembling from the match, but ready for whatever came next. Chuck's gaze locked onto him with intensity. "I'm going to challenge you, not just to fight, but to face what's inside you. Your fears, your doubts, your limits. Because the toughest opponent you'll ever face isn't across the ring, it's within." The coach exchanged a glance with Chuck, a mix of approval and concern passing between them. Tyler felt a mix of excitement and nerves surge through him. This wasn't the challenge he expected. It wasn't just about punches or technique. It was about confronting his own inner battles. Chuck continued, "Tomorrow, we're going to push you harder than ever before. You'll face drills designed to break you down, then build you back stronger. You'll face moments where quitting seems easier, but that's when you learn what you're truly made of." Tyler swallowed hard, nodding slowly. The road ahead was daunting, but Chuck's words ignited something deep inside, a resolve to prove not just his fighting skills, but his strength of character. The fighters around the gym whispered among themselves, energized by the challenge. Chuck's unexpected test wasn't just about training. It was a lesson in resilience, discipline, and heart. As the gym's lights flickered overhead, Tyler realized this challenge would define him more than any fight ever could. It was time to face himself and emerge stronger. The next morning, the gym was alive with a charged intensity that seemed to vibrate through every corner. Tyler arrived early, muscles tight with anticipation and a nervous energy he couldn't shake. Today wasn't just another day of training. It was a reckoning, a chance to face the shadows that had long lingered beneath his confidence. Chuck met him at the entrance, his expression serious but encouraging. Ready to face what's been holding you back? He asked. Tyler nodded, determination flickering in his eyes. I am. They began with grueling drills designed to push Tyler beyond his limits. Endless rounds of conditioning, balance work on unstable surfaces, and mental exercises to sharpen focus. Sweat poured freely, but Tyler's mind stayed locked on the challenge. This was more than physical endurance. It was about confronting doubts, fears, and memories that clung to him like weight. Midway through, Chuck paused the session and brought Tyler to the quiet corner of the gym where an old photograph hung. A faded image of Tyler's grandpa in uniform, eyes steady and resolute. Your grandpa faced his own battles, both seen and unseen, Chuck said softly. This isn't just about fighting others. It's about facing your past, your fears, and owning your future. Tyler stared at the photo, feeling a surge of connection and responsibility. The stories he'd heard all his life suddenly took on new meaning. Each lesson, each scar, a part of a legacy he was now ready to claim. The coach joined them, placing a firm hand on Tyler's shoulder. You're not alone in this fight. We all carry our own battles. The key is to stand tall and face them head on. As the day wore on, Tyler pushed through exhaustion and pain, each moment breaking down the walls of doubt and building a foundation of strength. The past no longer held him hostage. Instead, it became the fuel that propelled him forward. When the final bell rang, Tyler stood in the center of the gym, breath ragged but spirit unbroken. He had faced the past and emerged ready to write his own story. The gym was quiet as the evening settled in, the last rays of sunlight filtering through the windows. Tyler sat on the bench, muscles aching but heart steady, reflecting on the day's grueling training. The coach stood nearby, arms crossed, watching silently from a distance. After a long moment, the coach approached, his usual stern demeanor softened by something new. Respect, perhaps, or understanding. He knelt beside Tyler and met his eyes directly, the hardness in his gaze giving way to something warmer. You surprised me today, the coach said quietly. Not just with your skill, but with your heart. You didn't back down when it got tough. You faced everything head on. Tyler looked up, hope flickering in his tired eyes. I'm still learning. There's a lot I don't know. The coach nodded slowly. I know, and that's why I'm here, to help you become more than you think you can be. I was hard on you because I wanted to test your limits, but now I see you're ready for more. He paused, taking a deep breath. Your grandpa was a legend, and that legacy isn't easy to live up to. But you're carving your own path. That's what matters. Tyler felt a swell of pride and relief. The coach's change of heart wasn't just about recognition. It was a passing of the torch, a silent vow to stand beside him through the hard road ahead. The coach stood and clapped Tyler on the shoulder. Tomorrow, we push harder, but tonight you rest. You earned it. Around them, the gym buzzed softly with the sounds of wrapping up, but in that quiet moment, a new bond had formed. One built on respect, trust, and the shared belief that Tyler's journey was just beginning. As Tyler rose, feeling stronger despite the exhaustion, he realized the coach's toughest lesson had been faith. And now, that faith was his to carry forward. The morning sun poured through the gym's windows, casting a warm glow over the worn mats and equipment. Tyler arrived early, his body still sore, but his spirit ignited with a fierce determination. The coach's words from the night before echoed in his mind, fueling a resolve that felt stronger than ever. As he began his warm-up, Tyler's movements were sharper, more focused. Every punch, every kick, every step was deliberate, a silent promise to himself and to the legacy he carried. He wasn't just fighting for recognition anymore. He was fighting to prove that he could rise above doubt, pain, and fear. The coach watched from across the room, nodding in approval as Tyler pushed through a grueling round of drills. Chuck stood nearby, offering occasional guidance, but mostly allowing Tyler to find his own rhythm, his own strength. Tyler's mind flashed back to the stories his grandpa had told, tales of perseverance through impossible odds, of never giving up even when the world seemed against you. Those stories weren't just memories anymore. They were a blueprint for his journey. During sparring, Tyler faced a tougher opponent, someone with years more experience. The fight was intense, every exchange a test of skill and will. But Tyler's resolve didn't waver. He absorbed every blow, adapted, and countered with precision. When the bell rang, signaling the end of the match, Tyler stood tall, breathing heavily but undefeated in spirit. The gym erupted in quiet applause, the respect in the room palpable. The coach approached, a rare smile breaking through his usual stoic expression. "You're growing, kid. Not just as a fighter, but as a man. Keep that fire burning." Tyler nodded, feeling a surge of pride and humility intertwined. The journey ahead was still long and uncertain, but his resolve had been forged stronger than ever. As the gym filled with the sounds of training and determination, Tyler knew one thing for sure. He was ready to face whatever came next, standing firmly on the foundation of legacy, strength, and unbreakable will. The atmosphere in the gym had shifted noticeably over the past weeks. Where tension and skepticism once lingered, a new sense of unity had begun to take root. Fighters who had eyed Tyler with doubt now exchanged nods of respect, their attitudes softening as they witnessed his growth, not just as a fighter, but as part of the gym's family. Conversations flowed more freely between rounds, laughter occasionally breaking through the usual grunts and shouts. The coach's stern commands were now mixed with encouragement, and Chuck's quiet presence seemed to inspire more than just discipline. It brought a sense of camaraderie and shared purpose. Tyler moved through the gym with confidence, but humility, helping newer fighters with drills and sharing tips he had learned. His connection with the others deepened, the old barriers dissolving as the focus shifted from individual struggles to collective strength. During a group training session, the coach gathered everyone around. "This gym is more than just a place to train," he said, voice carrying across the room. "It's a team, a family. We win together, we lose together, and we push each other to be better every single day." The fighters responded with a roar of agreement, fists raised in solidarity. Tyler felt the weight of that moment, the power of belonging, of fighting not just for himself, but for everyone who shared the same passion and drive. Chuck stepped forward, adding, "Respect isn't given. It's earned through sweat, sacrifice, and support. You've all earned it by standing together." The room buzzed with renewed energy, a collective heartbeat pulsing through every movement. The old divisions had faded, replaced by a bond forged in shared hardship and mutual respect. As Tyler caught the eyes of his coach and Chuck, a silent understanding passed between them. The journey had brought more than skill and strength. It had brought a community united by trust and purpose. In that moment, the gym wasn't just a place to train. It was home. The gym's lights dimmed slightly as the evening settled in, casting a calm glow over the tired but focused fighters. Tyler sat on the edge of the mat, catching his breath after an intense session, while Chuck and the coach gathered nearby, ready to share something deeper than drills or sparring techniques. Chuck stepped forward, his voice steady but carrying a warmth that drew everyone's attention. Fighting isn't just about what happens in the ring. It's about how you carry yourself outside of it. Respect, discipline, integrity, those are the lessons that last a lifetime. Tyler listened intently as Chuck spoke of humility in victory and grace in defeat, of the importance of keeping promises and standing up for what's right, even when it's hard. These weren't just words. They were the pillars of the legacy Tyler's grandpa had passed down, now coming alive through the guidance of his mentors. The coach nodded in agreement, adding, "Every punch you throw, every move you make, reflects who you are. It's easy to get caught up in winning or proving yourself, but true strength comes from knowing yourself and treating others with honor." Around the gym, the fighters absorbed the message, the usual competitive edge softening into something more reflective. Training wasn't just physical preparation, it was character building. Tyler felt a shift within himself. The legacy he carried wasn't just about fighting harder or smarter. It was about being a better person. He thought about the sacrifices, the struggles, and the silent battles his grandpa had faced, battles fought not just with fists but with heart. As the session ended, Tyler approached Chuck and the coach, gratitude shining in his eyes. "Thank you for showing me there's more to this than fighting." Chuck smiled. "You're learning what many never do. That's the real victory." The gym settled into a quiet hum, but Tyler knew the lessons would echo far beyond these walls, shaping the man he was becoming long after the last punch was thrown. The gym was quiet now, the evening winding down as the fighters packed up their gear and prepared to leave. Tyler stood near the center of the mat, muscles tired but spirit strong. Chuck approached, his presence calm and steady, carrying the weight of years spent in battles both inside and outside the ring. Chuck placed a firm hand on Tyler's shoulder and looked him in the eye. "You've come a long way," he said, voice low but filled with conviction. "Not just in skill, but in character. That's what sets a true fighter apart." Tyler met his gaze, feeling the depth of those words settle deep within him. Chuck continued, "Your grandpa wasn't just a trainer or a warrior. He was a man who understood that the fight never really ends. It's in every choice you make, every challenge you face." He paused, the silence stretching between them like a bridge built on respect. "Remember this. Strength isn't measured by how hard you hit, but by how you stand when you've been knocked down. It's about rising again and again with your head held high." The coach stepped forward, nodding in agreement. "You've earned your place here, Tyler. Keep that fire alive. Keep fighting, not just for victory, but for honor." Chuck gave a rare, small smile. "You're ready to write your own story now. Carry that legacy with pride, but never forget it's your journey to forge." Tyler felt a surge of emotion, gratitude, determination, and a profound sense of purpose. The words from two men who had seen the worst and best of fighting now guided him like a compass. As Chuck and the coach turned to leave, Tyler stood taller, the echoes of their final words ringing clear. The gym might close its doors for the night, but his fight, his true fight, was just beginning. With quiet resolve, Tyler stepped forward into the future, ready to face whatever challenges awaited, armed with the wisdom, strength, and heart passed down through generations. The gym was bathed in the soft glow of morning light as Tyler stood alone in the center of the mat. The silence around him felt different now, full of promise rather than doubt. Every scar, every bruise, every lesson learned had led to this moment. He was no longer just the boy who carried his grandpa's name. He was becoming the man who would honor that legacy with every step he took. Memories of the past weeks, grueling training sessions, whispered stories, the tough love of the coach, and the steady guidance of Chuck wove together into a tapestry of strength and honor. Tyler understood now that legacy wasn't about living in someone else's shadow, but about building something new on the foundation they left behind. As he moved through his routine, each punch and kick carried the weight of tradition and the fire of his own spirit. The gym, once a place of challenge and conflict, had transformed into a sanctuary of growth, respect, and unity. Tyler felt the presence of those who came before him, not as ghosts, but as guides lighting the path forward. The coach watched from the sidelines, a quiet pride in his eyes, while Chuck's nod of approval spoke volumes without a single word. Tyler's journey had become more than personal. It was a beacon for everyone in the gym, a testament to what could be achieved with dedication, courage, and heart. He paused, breathing deeply, and glanced around the room, filled with fighters who now stood beside him, united by more than just skill. They were bound by the shared pursuit of greatness and the respect for a legacy built on honor and strength. Tyler smiled, knowing the road ahead would have its trials, but he was ready. With the lessons of the past and the support of his mentors, he would carry the legacy forward, not just as a fighter, but as a man of integrity. In that quiet moment, the legacy was alive and well, burning brighter than ever, passed on through Tyler's resolve and the unbreakable spirit of honor and strength.